So, we're now approaching 3 weeks since Jack and Lily Sullivan went missing from their home in Nova Scotia. If you are not familiar with the case, the official story from the parents is that these two children were apparently in their room and then they were gone. They apparently went out the oh-so-silent sliding door, played in the yard for a while, and then wandered off into the woods. Now, the parents are apparently psychic because they were basically in bed the entire time that this occurred, but they seem quite positive that this happened. Although they are also convinced, despite the fact that the Royal Mounted Canadian Police say otherwise, they are convinced that the children were abducted. We know from the RCMP that no, there is absolutely no sign whatsoever of the children having been abducted. However, we know also that having extensively searched the woods around the house, they have found absolutely no sign of the children. Now, YouTube clickbait channels are still having a field day with this case. So let's just clear up a few things. No, there is still no confirmation about some wild party during the week when the children went missing. There is also no confirmation of rumours that the parents were wildly into rugs, and you know what I'm saying there. No, we cannot presume, just because the house didn't look like your fancy suburban house, that these kids were neglected in any way or that the parents were into rugs, as some people seem to suggest. Other rumours, there has been talk of a searcher discovering a sock, and other items have been mentioned. First of all, I saw that photo of the sock. It was supposed to be a boy's sock. And I saw that photo on Facebook before it was removed. And if it was a boy's sock, it would have been a boy from the age of 10 upwards, 10, 11, 12-year-old. It certainly wouldn't have fitted either of those children. Now, there seem to be a lot of stories coming out from searchers who have all this inside information. But the thing is, you need to understand that these searchers aren't community members. These are volunteer searchers. They belong to a volunteer search organisation, and basically they are expected to maintain confidentiality. Not only is it their ass on the line if they share information that they shouldn't share, but it is also their overseers, their seniors, who are going to basically get into trouble should they mention things that they shouldn't mention. Now, yes, we can, of course, talk about things that were heard on the scanner, and I will be doing a video where I do that. But we do need to be careful of simply looking at a post that someone has done on Facebook saying, I'm a searcher and this is what I know. Because chances are that person is not a searcher and they probably don't know. I also just want to point out that people are putting a lot of weight on things that are being said by the stepfather and claims that he's making, but he's not exactly in the clear either. I'm going to go so far as saying that he is definitely not someone who is truthful, and he is not a good source for information. If you truly believe that the RCMP is going to fly in someone to do a lie detector test with him just so he can prove to social media that they are wrong, and note he never said that he's not guilty, then you are a little bit naive. So when we have him making statements like that, and when we have him making statements like, oh, I've been out every night searching. Note, nighttime, because obviously that's when he believes that their searchers are less likely to be able to turn around and say, actually, no, he's not been out searching. So you do need to treat everything that he says with a grain of salt. So, what do we know? Well, we still know very, very little 3 weeks on. The RCPM is keeping very, very quiet. We do know that they have interviewed around 35 people in relation to this case. Some people have argued, well, that proves there was a big wild party. But we need to consider that those people that have been interviewed will definitely include the mother, the stepfather, quite possibly the bio father, not because of any involvement, but because he can shed light on the mother and his relationship with her, and basically, you know, what she's like as an individual. You will also have had various neighbours interviewed for any information they have, and various family members interviewed. It could also be that there are people who have come forward as witnesses who know something about either the mother or the stepfather, and it is also quite possible that they have interviewed staff from Lily's school and Jack's school, since presumably he is going somewhere to school, as mentioned. So when you start taking all those people out of the equation, if there was a party, there was a damn small party, so then that kind of puts everyone's ideas completely to bed, doesn't it? Okay, so as I mentioned, we've had very, very little information come out from RCPM. It is their way to basically keep their investigation very, very quiet. What we do have, however, is information from a local, someone who is a bit over 5 kilometres away from this residence, who has been asked to provide the RCPM access to all her trail cam footage. I'm going to play a news report, and then I am going to comment on what has been said in this report, what has come out.
Melissa Scott's trail cameras might contain clues about the disappearance of Lily and Jack Sullivan. RCMP asked her for days of footage as the investigation into the missing children approaches the 3-week mark.
It's scary, especially not knowing what happens. We definitely keep our kids a little closer to home now.
The 4- and 6-year-olds were reported missing from this home on May 2nd, launching a massive search of the woods surrounding the home. No trace has been found, and RCMP haven't ruled out the case is suspicious. This is some of the footage Scott gave police. She says RCMP major crimes officers came to her home this week, asking for everything on her 7 cameras, starting April 27th, 5 days before the kids were reported missing.
Now, I've seen images of trail cam footage before, but I didn't realise you could get trail cam footage that was that clear. So, she's got 7 trail cameras, so you never know what could be found. What is interesting is that they have asked her for footage from 5 days before the children went missing. Now, we know that the children were at school on the Tuesday before they were reported missing, so it's interesting that they've dated it back that far, but it sounds like they are basically covering all angles. They have said that they don't believe that there was an abduction, but by asking for footage going back 5 days, it sounds like they are definitely trying to rule out just to be really, really certain that there was no abduction. They want to make sure there was no one lurking in the woods. But also, if there was foul play, then they're going to want footage dating from the last time the children were seen outside the home, being the Tuesday. So I guess they are covering all bases here.
Two of Scott's neighbors were also asked to provide footage to RCMP. She says the officers also asked about her family's vehicles to rule out local traffic in the footage.
Possibly they are wondering if they didn't go missing earlier, or maybe somebody who isn't local to the area was around beforehand.
So it sounds like there's actually quite a lot of trail cameras in the area, which is definitely a positive thing. Hopefully that might turn up something. As she's mentioned, they were asking about their cars, what their cars are, so that they can rule out their cars and see if there were any different cars in the area. Again, that seems to put the whole party idea to rest, because obviously they wouldn't be asking locals for details of their cars if they believed that there were just countless cars there, because it would be very, very hard to track down every single vehicle that was there. That's just my thoughts on that. People may disagree with me. Now, yes, certainly it looks like they are also looking at the abduction angle, but they have made it pretty clear before that they don't believe that it was an abduction, so we do need to keep that in mind. Just seems that they are doing a very, very, very thorough investigation. And we also don't know if, in terms of ruling out cars, if they could be looking at the possibility of other family members being involved, people who maybe wouldn't normally be in the area being there, who are connected somehow to the family. So we can't presume that them asking for information about locals' cars is them going down the route of an abduction.
This road is the most direct path from Scott's property to the home the kids went missing from. We drove between the two places. It's about an 18-minute drive down rough dirt roads. Straight through the woods, it's about 5 kilometers.
I did mention to them that I was very happy to see them and glad that they were canvassing a little further and looking at trail cam footage. And they did respond saying that they probably should have been around earlier.
RCMP would not answer CBC's questions, including why they are seeking trail camera footage from before the disappearance and why they are identifying local vehicles. Nicola Sagan, CBC News, Glengarry Station, Nova Scotia.
Now, she talks about how she asked them how come they hadn't basically come asking for her trail camera stuff earlier, and how come they hadn't been looking further out earlier. But like I said, we heard from RCMP that they do not believe that it is an abduction. So this is now basically them covering all angles of the investigation, but also so far they've turned up nothing in terms of locating these two beautiful children. So I guess they do have to look further out. And if the children were taken somewhere in a vehicle, whether it was abduction or a family member, then it is possible that they haven't been looking far enough out for the location of these children. One thing I would like to comment on, though, is I think it is perhaps a little unfair on the locals to be this tight-lipped with an investigation, because, as this lady mentioned, they're a little bit nervous now about their own kids. So if RCPM have concrete evidence that this is definitely not an abduction, I do believe that they should come out and say that again for locals, rather than collecting trail cam footage, asking for details of locals' cars, and putting that seed of doubt in their minds. I mean, when you do the victimology for these children, the chances of them having been abducted from that property are very slim. First of all, had they been playing in the backyard, that would not have been visible from the road. Also, it is a particularly isolated area, so it's not somewhere where you are going to get high traffic, where you are likely to get strangers who come through and become aware that there are two young children living in that house. And of course, it would also mean having to be at the property at the precise time when those children happen to be outside unsupervised. There are so many things that point away from the possibility of an abduction. So I can see why the RCMP are basically saying, yeah, we've ruled this out. This is also why there is no Amber Alert. I know I had one person comment in one of my recent videos saying, well, they should have done an Amber Alert really, really soon. And I know the mother was apparently, within the first day, screaming for an Amber Alert. But at the end of the day, there are criteria for an Amber Alert, and that would have to be, those criteria have to be ticked off. And I'm willing to bet that they wouldn't even have one thing of that criteria, aside from, these children are at risk because of their age and possible autism, but they have nothing else. They don't have an identity of anyone. They don't have a vehicle sighting, anything like that. So that is why there hasn't been an Amber Alert. So that's all the details I have to give you for today. If you're after gossip, I'm afraid I do apologise. I don't deal in gossip on this channel. I deal in facts. I deal in information that is coming from a credible source. So let's pray that these poor little children are found soon. We know that the chances now of them being found alive are pretty much zero, which is heartbreaking, but they do need to be brought home to their family. So on that note, thank you for listening. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit the like button. YouTube loves it when you do that. And please do leave a comment below, even if it's just leaving a love heart or a butterfly for Jack and Lily. So thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.